So you knew we were going to have to talk about it, and I would love to know and hear in the comments what do you guys think about what's going on with this Ja Morant situation. So we find ourselves with another video of Ja Morant, once again with the gun on Instagram, and he's at this point of being suspended. When I saw the news, I, much like other people, thought it was a joke. I thought it was another mention of what happened months ago. And I was curious why they were bringing up old stuff and why was this even in circulation that they were talking about this again. Come to find out, that's not what this was. This was not the case. He's on Instagram Live again with a gun. And I know previously I gave a different perspective, and I think I still had the same perspective that I am concerned about him. I could care less about the league because the league is going to move on. His team is going to move on. I'm more concerned about him as to why he brings this attention to himself. You know, there's a lot of conversation. Oh, well, you know, you're disrespecting the league. No, you're disrespecting yourself because you worked hard for this. And I think we're at this point that we have to ask, or he needs to ask himself. He doesn't owe us an answer for anything. He has to ask himself, what does he want? Because if you didn't learn from 2 months ago that you got a light punishment, you got an 8-game suspension, you didn't really have to provide any deep explanation. Maybe you met with the commissioner and had a conversation, but you didn't necessarily have to provide any deep explanation in reference to your behavior. You were suspended for 8 games. You were able to come back. You were able to contribute in a playoff run. And it seemed as if your team accepted you back without a problem. And for that not to be a learning experience, because we're not talking about something that happened a year or two ago. We're talking about a fresh experience that just happened. And no, that does not necessarily mean I expect a large change in behavior, but at least there is a lesson of I shouldn't put this on social media. This is not for public consumption. If this is the way I feel and this is the way I like to move, at least I have learned from my previous experience that this should not be for public consumption on social media. And for the fact that that lesson wasn't learned off of something that occurred the same fashion about 2 months ago is interesting to me. So I am frustrated, but it's also not my life. So now we're back to the question that he has to ask himself. What does he want? Do you want to live the life you've been portraying and hanging out with your friends and doing those type of things? Or do you want to embrace the life of the athlete? Do you want to embrace the journey you decided to take when you started playing basketball and possibly went to college? I'm sure you desired to make it to the league. He has to ask himself, which one does he want to do? And it's not a decision that anybody can make for him, and he has the right to change. He has the right to decide he doesn't want to do this athlete life. He has the right to decide that if the responsibility and attention is too much for him, that he doesn't have to do it. But he does need to make that decision. Because I think he's putting him in a spot that jeopardizes his future. That I believe it appears he worked hard for. I would make an argument it jeopardizes a career that's meaningful to him in the sense of he's able to put his family in better situations. You know what I mean? So I won't say he doesn't care about that result, but I do think he has to figure out what's the best course of action for him in his life. And to be honest, he might not choose the money. He might not desire to live the life of being a celebrity and an athlete, and that's his decision. But you have to figure out what you want. And even in choosing that, you have to learn how to move safe. You got to move smart and you have to move safe. Because a lot of this stuff that's going on is very self-inflicted. A lot of this stuff that's going on, we would not have known if you didn't put it out there. So you're right. We don't have control or say so over the life you live and the mess you do. But if you kept it private, we wouldn't know. I'm sure the league would not be as upset or possibly care if they weren't aware of the guns you owned. It's just a certain way you got to move. So it's sad and frustrating to see that his career could be, or his life that he's given, and I would say he gave it because he made it to the league. It had to have been some sort of goal of his to make it to the league. So I will say that it's going through a derailment right now between the suspension and kind of distraction that the team had to deal with last year, and now we don't know how long he's been suspended this year coming. In a young career where I think he's making his stamp. He just got a shoe deal. You get to see his dad on the sidelines. You see his daughter. I just think that he was figuring it out. And that's what I would say. He has to figure what he wants. He has to figure out what he wants. And not make that decision for any of us or the media or the league. Make it for himself and his interests. Thinking about his family, his friends, and himself. What does he want? And at the end of the day, I can't speak for everybody. I just want to see you do well. I want to see you remain safe, and I want to see you do well in life.